verses, 1 John 2:18, little children, it is the last hour, and you have heard, as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour. And so what is he talking about there? Well, again, as you read through there, and the verses talk more in detail, who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. And obviously when we talk about the evolutionary, materialistic, the whole thing starts with there is no God. Okay, where do we go from there? It all starts with there is no God, there is no Father, there is no Jesus. There's none of that. And that at the core is an Antichrist spirit. That at the very core of that whole concept, that it all started without God's help, is an Antichrist spirit. And I think that's a good foundational understanding for us to have. At the core of this deception, the Antichrist spirit is at work. As many Antichrists have come in the past, even so now there is an Antichrist spirit. Every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. And so that hasn't stopped in John's day. It kept on going through the dark ages. The Antichrist spirit has been at work for the last 2,000 years and will remain at work. After the church is raptured, it will come to this full crescendo of having the Antichrist actually in person upon the earth. But in the meantime, Satan is working against the things of the Lord. He's working to deceive people. He's working against Christ. The Antichrist, if you look at the wording there and look at the words that are used in the Greek, Antichrist is against, obviously. He's working against, or the opposite of Christ in that respect. And so he's working against the things of the Lord. He's working against people's belief in the Bible. There is a spirit in the world. Today they call it the zeitgeist, right? Is kind of the spirit of the age that we're in. Whatever's the popular thing that's going on, I think this, era that we're in right now is a good example of that. It's just like all of a sudden everybody gets deceived into believing the same thing and they all go after it. It's like, what? How did that happen? And I think we can see that definitely in the things that we're talking about in this study, the zeitgeist or the spirit of the age, the spirit of the air, the Bible calls it. I think all those things can kind of go into what's being discussed here in 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, of this spirit of Antichrist that is already in the world. It's working against Christ, working against belief in Christ. Many deceivers have gone out into the world who do not confess Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist. And again, at the core of these doctrines and philosophies and things that we're talking about, there is no God. There is no Father. There is no Son, Jesus Christ. All those things are fairy tales. That is a spirit of Antichrist. And so it's not to say that, every person that we run into out there has a spirit of Antichrist because they don't believe in Jesus Christ. They're just deceived. It's the spirit that is going out that is deceiving those people. That's the spirit of Antichrist that we're talking about. And so that spirit is at work. It has been at work, not just for the last 500 years, but all the way back to the very beginning. Satan has been trying to deceive men. And now, so when we talk about conspiracy theories and the deceptions that we're dealing with here, many people believe that the CIA was the first group to coin that phrase, conspiracy theory, in 1967 to discredit any theory on the murder of JFK in opposition to the conclusion reached by the Warren Commission. And there is an actual document out. Have you guys seen this document or heard about this document? This is really interesting. I didn't know anything about it till today as I was researching. But I came across this and I thought it was a good way for us to kind of understand that if they're, the question of why would they do this? And is there really this conspiracy that's happening? And forces that are trying to control our perception of reality. And I think you see it definitely in this document that is released back in 1996, I think when President Clinton was trying to get out some of the information on JFK, this document was released. And you see right there at the subject line, it says, countering criticism of the Warren Report. The Warren Report was the official document that came out to say what happened in the JFK assassination. And of course, there were many holes in it, and many people just didn't believe it. It was just like, man, you guys are covering something up here. And so all these ideas started coming out. Well, the wording of conspiracy theory wasn't created by the CIA. It's been around since the 1900s even. But certainly in our time that we're living in, as we see the government lying to us and trying to mold our reality, as it were, These kind of things really do cause some red flags to happen. And I was looking through the document a little bit. It's so interesting. They talk about how they're very concerned about the reputation of the American government. Our organization, or the CIA itself, is directly involved. Among other facts, we contributed information to the investigation. Conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization. So they're worried about their own reputation, about people saying, hey, the CIA was involved in that assassination. And so they're trying to get disinformation out there so that the finger's not pointing at them anymore. And they say the aim of this dispatch is to provide material for countering and discrediting the claims of the conspiracy theorists. Isn't that crazy? Hey, we're sending a document out to all our people for the express purpose of countering and discrediting those conspiracy theories that are out there. And again, I think that gives us a tremendous insight. This is 1967, about what goes on in our government and how they are trying to control the narrative about what we believe and what we see as reality. And then he says at the end there, whoever wrote this, to inhibit the circulation of such claims. We're trying to shut everybody up. We're trying to shut this thing down. And interesting. And so they give a couple of ways in order to do that, several ways, and then they give a bunch of documents that you can use in the practice of disseminating this information. To discuss the publicity problem with liaison. This is what they're saying. Go out and discuss the publicity problem with liaison and friendly elite contacts, especially politicians and editors. And so you just see this thing that we've always kind of thought about. It's happening. It was happening then, and certainly it's happening now, where elite levels of our government are coordinating their efforts with the media and with political figures to control what people understand and what they don't understand about our reality that we're living in. Elite contacts, I thought that was an interesting term, especially politicians and editors. He says the charges, and say these things to him, that the charges of the critics are without serious foundation. What's that saying? Hey, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're even dealing with here. The other thing was to point out that it's deliberately generated by communist propagandists. All this conspiracy stuff, oh, it's just the communists. You know, the communists always get used as that oh, Russia. Exactly, Russia, right? Blame it on the communists, man. Putin, it's Putin, and Trump, oh, they're in cahoots. You know, it's just this continual lie that whenever they want to cover something up, they throw it out there. Huh?
This document is published?
Yeah, I've got it on my computer right now. I'll send it to you.
Officially from the CIA?
I've only read the first 2 pages.
Like, can't believe this.
And then the other thing, the second point, they said to employ propaganda assets to answer and refute the attacks. Get our propaganda out there, you know, get it out there to control the narrative. And then he says, our play should point out a couple of things, you know, wedded theories adopted for evidence was politically interested, financially interested, hasty and inaccurate in their research, or infatuated for their own theories, or with their own theories. And so here's our play. Here's how we're gonna get this thing out there. Here's how we're gonna get our propaganda out there. You know, we're just gonna say that their research is wrong. They don't know what they're talking about, or you know, they're just politically interested or whatever. But again, you see the overall thing that's trying to be done here. You know, they don't believe the Warren Report. People are questioning the Warren Report. They don't believe that JFK was assassinated that way by one guy that shot how many bullets or whatever from that window way up there. It doesn't, the smell test, it doesn't quite make sense, and it seems like they're covering up. But here comes the CIA. Hey, get this propaganda out there, kill this narrative, get our narrative out there, use the media, use politicians. I mean, if that's not a coordinated disinformation campaign, I don't know what is. But if they're doing that in 1967 about the JFK assassination, you can bet they're doing it about many, many other things as well. And certainly, again, if our little discussion about this great deception is happening, they're involved in that as well. And that's just one aspect of it. I'm not trying to say the CIA is the one agency that's doing all this. I'm trying to come back again to that idea of esoteric governance controlling what we believe, controlling our reality. And they do it at the highest levels. They have to do it at the highest levels of government and academic agencies. So why would they do it? I think is another thing that we can look at. What I come down to ultimately in this segment that we're looking at on why would they do it, the distinction between the world that we live in the biblical cosmology sense and what God says about us, what he says about why we're here, what he says about how special we are to him, as opposed to the atheistic, again, deception that we're looking at. We talked about this when I did